Thanks for joining us. This is live with Miami's Community News, and we're with Miami-Dade County Animal Services, and we're going to be talking today about pet enrichment at Animal Services and at our home. And so we have a video. Dexter, can we play that? Again, thanks for joining us. Again, Savannah and Monica. We understand that a pet's mental and physical well-being is not only important to the pet, but important to the family. And by bonding pets to the family, it's healthier for everybody. And it's a lot more fun, all right, when we have happy pets. And we have Rocky over here. Hey, Rocky. Hello. So Rocky is available to the right home, right?
Absolutely. Rocky is available for adoption. He is a 10-year-old owner surrender. He is currently my favorite dog in the shelter right now.
And so, Savannah, you are the kennel manager.
I am.
And Monica is the enrichment specialist. So we're going to start with Monica. Tell us about what a enrichment specialist does.
Yeah, so my job at the shelter is to provide mental well-being for the dogs. So, in the shelter, the pets are not able to perform their natural activities since they are in a kennel for most of their day. So what we do is we take them on enrichment walks. We do play groups with them. We give them food puzzles to work with, and we try to work with them so they are not as stressed in the kennel as they would be if they had nothing in there.
So when you said food what?
Food puzzles.
Food puzzles. What is a food puzzle?
Yeah, so there's a lot of food puzzles available on the market for dogs. So dogs, a lot of them are food motivated, so they want to scavenge for their food. If you think of like wolves, they naturally look for food in their environment, right? So this is a way for them to use their nose and try to work out how to get the food out. So we have like a few examples we have a con wobbler. So like you put the food in here and the pet just needs to move the toy around and the food comes out of this hole and it falls out and they're able to eat it.
So they keep playing with it until it finally falls out.
Yeah.
And they figure it out.
Yeah, they figure it out really quickly because they have good noses and they know that it's in there and they have to figure out how to get it out.
We know that our friendly cats, they have no problem doing it because they dive right in to do that. By the way, there've been a lot of tests done with African greys and with crows, and to show that animals really have some deductive thinking, how they can move stuff from over here to the next step. So Savannah, tell us what you do.
I'm the kennel manager, so I oversee the kennel side of things, not only enrichment, but also the daily animal care. So walking the dogs, which is something that kennel staff does, is also enriching, spending time with the dogs, and then basic animal husbandry.
So we just saw a wonderful video, and we saw the dogs out there. They're all playing with each other. But yet there's so many people like myself to think if two big dogs get together, all right, they maybe, go after one another. But that's not always the case, is it?
No, definitely not. Especially in the shelter environment, we see many dogs want to interact with other dogs. Not all. But there are some dogs that will tolerate other dogs or even enjoy playing with other dogs. And so we give them the opportunity to do that if that's what they want to.
So let's look at sometimes there's this great big huge dog and there's a little guy like the one that you're holding over there about this big, where the big dog sort of puts up with it and tries to play. But and they each figure out their role in that.
Yeah.
So you must see a lot of that.
So we actually put big dogs with big dogs and then small dogs with small dogs, because the way that our shelter is organized, we have 50 pounds and smaller in the front and then 50 pounds and bigger in the back. So those front rooms with the 50 pounds and under dogs, they all go together, and then the 50 pounds and over dog go together. It's a little safer and, more mutual play, which is what we're after.
Monica, why did you choose to work with animals like this?
Oh, well, I've always had a passion for animals. And then when I grew older, I discovered how much I cared about the welfare and mental well-being of these animals. And I feel like this role really helps me get involved with the animals, not just caring for them and walking them, but actually making sure that they're not stressed in the environment.
And lots of times when animals are caged up, all right, they have a lot of extra anxiety and grief and depression and all that, all right? Mm-hmm. So what do you do to spot those animals that are having a problem?
So stress is definitely something that we battle with in the shelter. As you mentioned, being kenneled isn't really a normal thing for most dogs, and that's why we are providing them enrichment. So we try to be ahead of it and not wait until they get so stressed that they're showing stereotypical behaviors or they're excessively licking or barking or anything like that. We provide them the in-kennel enrichment. We strive for daily walks as well as play groups for the dogs before that ever happens.
So people on the outside might look at animal services under the old name. I won't mention what it was, right? That people, they think that the dogs just go into a cage and they sit there and nobody pays any attention to them until the adopters might be walking by. That's not the case at all.
No, not anymore. I think sheltering has evolved a lot since the pound mentality. And I think it's continuously evolving. And that's something that Miami-Dade Animal Services is always striving for, is to reach that new standard or industry standard.
And Monica, as far as socializing with the dogs and the family, how important is that for the dog's mental health?
Do you mean talking socializing with people or with dogs?
Yes, both.
With both? Okay. Yeah, so in the shelter we make sure that we have volunteers and we have staff that walk the dogs, play with dogs, get to know the dogs. With the other dogs, we see if they are good with other dogs, if they want to socialize with other dogs. We never want to stress the dog. If they don't want to socialize with other dogs, we're not going to force them to socialize with dogs.
So when a potential adopter comes by, they're already getting accustomed to dealing with new people and with other animals.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody wants to adopt a dog, you're going to let them know, here's our experience with this dog. Very friendly with people, very animal friendly,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like too big dogs, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
like cats, whatever it happens to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So we like to see if the dog likes calmer dogs. So when someone comes in and they say, "Oh, I have a puppy," we're not going to pair them with a 10-year-old dog who does not want to play with a puppy, you know? So we want to have the right pairing in the right home so the dog does not get returned to us at the shelter.
At one point, we had 6 dogs in our house and 2 in the back, and we had a pretty big property. 2 big ones, 2 medium, 2 little ones. The little runt rat terrier, this big, was in charge of that 80-pound or ish Rottweiler. But every time that doorbell would ring, it would drive us all crazy. And I always wondered who was going to get bit, whether it was me, the other dog, or our visitor. So socializing dogs is pretty important to be successfully adopted, correct?
Yeah, it depends on what home. So some people don't have other pets and they only want a single pet. So a dog that doesn't get along with other dogs might be great for that type of home. If they plan on getting another dog down in the future, we might find a dog that's more suitable for their family style. Some dogs don't like children, so we have to make sure that they get along with children if they're going to have children in the future as well.
So let's talk about things that you might do on a regular basis as a kennel manager. What, like today, other than coming here, what are some of the other things that you would be doing today?
First simple answer, make sure that the kennel and the animals, now Rocky's
Hello,
coming
Rocky.
up. Make sure the kennel and animals are taken care of, as well as providing support for the staff, some guidance and structure of how the animals should be cared for.
And we know that about 15 years ago, Michael Rosenberg was trying to draw attention to the animal at that point, control it was called back there, and he stayed in the kennel for a day or two. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it takes bold people to do stuff to get attention to a particular cause. And I would say, as we look to the progression of animal services, the difference is tremendous. And when you look to folks like the two of you and the other folks that I've met, you really care about the animals. When did you recognize that you cared a lot about animals, Savannah?
I love that question. Since as long as I can remember, I have loved animals. I've always had animals of my own. And I think when I was probably 14 or 15, I decided I wanted to work in animal welfare. So I've started when I was 16, my first job, and I've continued along this path.
Some people are lucky in life. They find out what they want to do and they do it.
Yeah.
Right? And then others search their whole life looking for that thing. So congratulations on finding it so early. So tell us about that. When somebody takes their dog home, they adopt a dog in which they can go and they can look it up at the website, or they can go to the animal services to be able to do it. What are some things they should do on a regular basis to provide emotional health for the dog? Why don't you tell us?
Yeah. So are you asking when they come to the shelter? I'm sorry.
Yeah, when somebody adopts a pet,
Mhm.
all right, and they take them home, What is and it's been a long time since they've had a pet. What are some of the things that the new owner should do to make sure that this pet is getting along and that we're satisfying most of his needs?
Yeah, so it actually takes dogs 3 days to when they leave the shelter to decompress, and it could take up to 3 months for them to fully get acclimated into their environment. So new owners need to take that into consideration when they bring a new animal home, that the dog that they see when they first get it might not be the same dog in 3 months. So they need to be comforting to the dog and understand that the dog's behavior is changing. Remember, they're in a new environment. Everything is changing for them as well. So when they're trying to introduce to other dogs, they need to do it slowly, and they need to walk the dogs in like a park where the dog does not get introduced straight into the house, because the other dog already knows the house and it can be protective of the house. So you need to introduce them somewhere away from the house, slowly on a leash, and then give them their own space, give them their own attention.
Yeah, we raise exotic birds as a hobby, and frequently when we get a new bird, we put them in a cage nearby, so they can talk to each other, and they can do that where they can't bite each other.
Sure.
And so after a couple of days, they're like kissing each other, because that's a normal thing to do that, to protect themselves and not to be concerned about getting beat up by the other ones. So one of the things that we saw with the food was a toy. How important is that when they're in the kennel to be able to still stimulate parts of their brains with either people or with toys?
Incredibly important. I mean, like what I was saying before, stress is so common in animals that are kenneled, whether that's domestic animals like cats and dogs, but also zoo animals you see enrichment. When you go to your local zoo, it really helps provide them the species-specific behavior that they need. And again, we try to decrease stress as much as possible, and that's one of the ways to do it. So,
and Sven, we know that even with other types of dogs, I mean, with cats, we give them these little toys to play with, keep them occupied. And with our little infant kids, we put little devices there to keep them occupied. Then they get older, we put the little. We now give them their own phones in the back seat to keep them occupied.
The natural progression.
So when the last time I was at a kennel, some of the dogs would come up to the door, and try to talk to you, and others, would lay down, all wanting attention. So how do you deal with the attention that the dogs want? What do you do to respond to them?
Yeah, so like I said, we take them out a lot. We have volunteers that come and take out our dogs. So they get to play with them. They get to pet them. We have groomers who like to groom them. And we try to give them as much attention as possible, because they are in that kennel for the majority of their day. And it's really stressful just being in there with the barking dogs and new people.
And so when your staff, your volunteers spend time with the animals, they get really comforted. I look at this guy over here, right? He's so happy that somebody's paying attention to him. And he's saying, pet me, I love you, pay attention to me. All right. So by the way, if you want to adopt Rocky, they can do that. It's a qualified family.
Absolutely. Right? Please come on down and meet him. He's a fabulous dog.
And he's just aching to go out and to be adopted by a family.
Absolutely.
So frequently we see people with their dogs out on long walks or joggers, or with the mom and dad pushing their baby with the dog that's there. What are some of the things that people should be aware of, all right, when they have their dogs on extended walks?
First and foremost, I mean, we live in Florida. We know it's very hot here. Heat stroke, health first, right? Make sure your dog's capable of doing that. Just like there's different levels of human athletes, there's different levels of dog athletes as well. Brachycephalic dogs are also very popular here in South Florida. So you need to be extra cautious when you do have a brachycephalic dog, that it doesn't overheat. So those are the smush nose dogs. We see a lot of Frenchies here, a lot of French bulldogs. Those guys probably wouldn't be good for a half marathon run.
Are you a runner?
I run sometimes. I run occasionally. My dogs are a little faster than me, so I mostly rollerblade them.
Okay. Well, I was on South Miami Avenue the other day, and a lot of people over there with their push things with the dogs and running, and it's really, really quite extraordinary to see how families have really taken dogs into a real deal.
Yeah.
It seems to be there are more people with animals in the last couple of years than before. Is there any evidence to support that?
There is. Yeah, there was actually just an article I read in National Geographic that there's more pet owners now than ever before in history. So.
as I mentioned before, we breed exotic birds, and somebody asked me if they could have the bird. I said, "Well, tell me about your home life." "Well, it's just me." "Oh, that's great. And where would you keep the bird?" "In my bedroom." And I go, "Do you work?" "Yes." "Do you have neighbors?" "Yes." "Don't worry, Michael, the neighbors won't hear the bird." I said, "So when do you leave for work?" 8 o'clock in the morning. "When do you get home?" "I work a long time. I'll be home at 7 o'clock at night." I said, "So the bird is going to be alone in your dark bedroom. And then when you get home, you're going to be asleep 4 hours later." I said, "You're not getting the bird from me." Right?
Yeah.
Because it's torturous to do that to animals. So when somebody wants to adopt a pet, they really need to be able to have a real bond with this particular animal.
Yeah, I do think the human animal bond is not only important, but also really special for both parties in there. We do hear a lot of people, of course, both Monica and I have, jobs or working 8 hours as well, and we both do have pets. I think that it's also coming up with a solution to how you can house your pet while you are at work. So some of those enrichment toys that we use for kennel animals, those are great for owned pets as well. Doggy daycares are great if your pet is able to participate in that. I actually think we brought some examples of easy enrichment toys that you could just make with stuff that you have lying around your house. Absolutely, yeah. If Monica wants to show and talk about this one that she brought.
So sports, all right, are made for dogs and cats, right? For the right ones, all right? So let's hear what these are. Tennis balls, folks, all right?
Yeah, so like I said, there's food puzzles and dog toys that you can buy online, but if you cannot afford that, or if you just want to try something different, see if your dog is actually motivated to work for the food, you can get a cupcake tray and then put some tennis balls in the holes, put some food inside the holes, put the tennis ball on the top, and then they just need to move the tennis ball to get the food, and they'll eat the food.
So this stimulates their brain as
Absolutely.
far as high functioning, all right? So let's talk for a second. We see people with the frisbees and they're catching it, and on TV you see the dogs that are through the training camps. It's amazing that you can teach dogs, and we see some of the people dancing with their dogs. It's clearly amazing. It does take a while for them to do that.
I think people would be surprised how quickly dogs do learn. Again, both Monica and I can speak about this. Monica enjoys training other people's dogs and her dogs. I just train my dogs, and they pick up on things so quickly. I think Monica can agree with me. I adopted my dog within a month. He knew enough tricks to qualify as a novice trick dog. So I think 14 different tricks in 1 month. It was relatively easy, especially if you have a food motivated dog.
Yeah, my wife said that about me. Exactly those words. So let's talk about, are there certain dogs that are more apt to do certain sports, or is it just the individual dog and the individual owner?
Yeah, so if we think about it, dogs were actually bred to work, right? So that's how breeds were created. They were, for example, a border collie was bred to herd the sheep and the farms, right? So they have that natural instinct to herd and to nip at the sheep. So if they're not able to perform those activities that they were bred to do, they're going to do it to the people in their house. So that's where we see a lot of behavior problems, such as nipping at the heels of kids. So if you are able to give them that outlet, like there's sports for sheep herding where you could take your dog, do some sheep herding. For terriers were born to look for rats in the barns. There's this sport called barn hunt where they look for the rats in the hay and they alert. They alert to where it is.
Yes.
They don't let them do that in the sport. The rats are safe.
Yeah,
No rats
safe.
are harmed.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But they did call them ratters, all right? Rat terriers, all right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are ones that are bred for that. They know that instinctively. And if we look at little tiny kittens, you can see that they're going like this. That's in their genes to do that.
Instinct, yeah.
Right. And it is amazing, right? And we look, I used to collect snakes and things. You see that type of behavior, and you know that they are going to do it, right? So there's certain types of dogs that are bred for different things. We see when we see the sheep herding, which is an amazing thing, right?
It is.
Look how they do that. And then the sheep and the cows, right? They know what to do. They better go over this way, or else something's going to happen.
I was going to say they better know what to do, or they're about to get nipped a little bit. I actually went sheep herding a couple months ago, and there was a border collie who had never seen sheep before, and he went over and he immediately started circling them. The instinct is so strong. It's very, very cool.
So let's talk about what sometimes we'll see these highly trained animals. Mostly, I've seen shepherds and the security dogs where they point and they do all the things and they sit. And sometimes there'll be food out there, right? And the dogs will just sit there until they're told that it's okay to eat.
Mm-hmm.
How do you teach a dog that impulse control? Because I'm going to take that lesson. What do you think? But there are people that teach the dogs to do that.
Yeah. So, that goes against what they are naturally wanting to do, right? To go eat the food immediately, right? But teaching impulse control is very important for dogs because it tells them to, hey, calm down, just wait a few more seconds and I will let you go get that. So when you teach what I call the wait command, you can use like their food bowl. So they would wait for their food bowl. You hold their food bowl, you make them sit and wait. You put it down slowly. If they try to get to the food before it hits the ground, you pull it back up and you wait until they calm down, and then you keep doing that until the dog does not rush up to the food, and you tell them the okay command, which allows them to go get the food.
Let's talk about crating your dog. All right. I used to think it was terrible. Not anymore. But how important is being able to keep your dog under control and being able to crate them when needed?
I'm gonna let Monica take this one.
All right, Monica.
So crating is very important because it gives them this safe and comfortable place for them to rest and get away from whatever is stressing them. So let's say you have a child in the house, that crate is that safe spot where the dog knows that the child is not going to get there. So we know children are high energy and they like to pet with the dog, play with the dog, but sometimes that's just too much for the dog and the dog wants to get away. So giving them that option to go into their kennel is very good. Additionally, if we ever need to have to go to an emergency situation and we have to go to a shelter, they're only going to accept your dog if the dog can be in a kennel. And imagine it's already stressful enough going to a new environment with all these people, all these dogs. And then additionally, you're throwing the dog into this small space where they are being separated from their family. And that's very stressful. So you want to reduce that amount of stress that they have.
And here in South Florida, on coastlines, we're always dealing with the threat of storms.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be hard to imagine taking a dog into a center hurricane relief program and then having this dog, number one, that's never been crated before. He's not going to go in that crate, right?
It's going to be very difficult to force him into the crate. Yeah, it's not ideal. You should try to crate train your dog, or at least have your dog comfortable going in and out of a crate.
And let's talk about in traveling. I see a lot of pets now travel, and we have more people bringing dogs here. Probably in the last year it's probably been 8 or 10 years worth. When it first started last COVID, February, whatever it was, last year, people started with the dog. Then I'm realizing everybody's bringing their dogs with them, right?
It's great.
Everybody use that term, generically, but dogs have to be really domesticated in order for the building, whoever's in the building, to trust that enough. Like this dog it's wonderful, right? So how do people teach their dogs how to travel and how to be able to go into strange places without barking and getting crazy? What's the training like with that?
I think a lot of that comes from the socialization period. Not saying it's impossible to train an adult dog or anything like that, but I think having a solid structure with puppies, if you are going to get a puppy, is really important. With adult dogs, I would say just be patient, go slow. Encourage the dog. If it's food motivated, like I said, that's always the easiest. You can bring some delicious cookies for them and encourage them slowly. Just don't try to rush things. If they're scared of something, the same with people. You wouldn't want, if I was scared of spiders, you wouldn't throw me in a room full of spiders and hope that I overcome my fear, right? So if a dog's scared of an elevator, don't force it into the elevator and close the door and say that they'll deal with it.
And people can go to animal service. They can walk in the front door. They can walk in the front door of the website. What's the website?
PetHarbor.com.
PetHarbor.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I see we have some wilderness food over here. Tell us what who's that for?
These are just some treats. I figured that Rocky would probably appreciate to have some treats.
He's ready.
Yeah, he's ready to sit. And if we had to demonstrate any of the food puzzles, I'm sure Rocky would volunteer to do that.
And so again, somebody can walk in the door over there. They can take a look at some of the pets. And I know the website's very active, but there certainly are animals that are there at the site that are not yet up on the website.
All of our animals will be up on the website,
How long
and
does that usually take?
the website's updated every hour.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
So lots of people wonder what happened to my dog, all right? And so let's say it's lost. They can go to your website and look for that.
Absolutely. We encourage anyone to do that. We also have a lost and found department that if they have a flyer, they're able to bring that flyer in to animal services, and we'll hang that up on our side as well.
Okay, let's talk about people if they want to adopt a dog. We've got. Yeah, I understand there's a promotion coming up that's through the end of the month. All right, to where dogs that are more than 4 months old, the adoption fees are waived.
Correct.
Right now, you have a few dogs over there available.
Oh my gosh, yes, more than a few.
Yes, and but the owners, they need to pay for the license and the tag fee, and they all come with chips.
Yes, all of our animals are sterilized, up to date on age-appropriate vaccines, and microchipped.
So microchips are really important. That's like our own ID. Right? If they get lost, all the vets they want them or down there, and they're going to be able to say who's there. Right?
Yeah.
And if somebody has a change in their address, how do they make that change?
They can
in the chip.
They can make the chip make the change by calling the chip company. I think there's a little bit of confusion around microchips. I've heard a lot of people ask how to track the microchip. I think that it's easy to think about microchips as kind of a dog tag, but inside the skin. So the dog tag can never be removed or lost or anything like that. It's right in between the shoulder blades.
And there you have lots of little puppies as well as seniors. He's not a senior yet, but he's getting there after a few more years. So puppies of all sorts that are available. All right, and they can adopt the puppies. What's the charge for that?
The puppies are $75.
Okay.
Adoption fee, 85. Excuse me,
Okay.
$85 adoption fee for the puppies. And they will also have age-appropriate vaccines, and they usually aren't big enough to be sterilized. So if that's the case, we'll just schedule an appointment so we can get them sterilized in the future for you.
I know I've told you this story before, but I love telling it. One day, this slight pit bull little guy shows up at the front door, and he's wagging his tail like Rocky over here. So I feed him, give him water. All right. I'm hoping he goes away. He doesn't go away. A day later, he's still there.
Oh wow!
Day later, he's still there. So I'm trying to put everything everywhere. Nobody wants a dog. Blah blah blah. I'm telling him, hey, I found this dog. So one day he's sitting in the front yard, and I drive away. He chases me. Oh, I felt terrible.
Oh, that's
right?
heartbreaking.
Next day, I go, well, I'm going to go for a walk, see if he follows me. Sure enough, he followed me right back to his house. So he lived next door. Right?
Oh, wow.
And he was just visiting. All right?
He was taking your food.
Yeah. So we know lots of pets get lost, all right? And the animal services frequently picks them up. If they're chipped, you're going to know right away. You're going to be able to do that. And at the end of every day, animal services takes the dogs they have and they put them into the Doral facility. And people can go look online, or they can go out there and look at that.
Absolutely.
It is called the Animal Services Pet Adoption and Protection Center.
Correct.
Right? Just by virtue of those names, it really helps all of us feel really good about it. You guys are pretty young. You don't remember what we remember a long time ago. It's like, we don't want to look that way. We don't want to know what's happening. We just are going to ignore it. But because of people like yourselves, these dogs and cats are living a long time and winding up with some beautiful homes. So we want to thank you for visiting with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you. And folks, if you need to and want to find out more about pets from the animal services, what's the website again?
PetHarbor.com or miamidade.gov/animals.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us again. This is Live with Miami's Community News. Thank you very much for your time.